One of the gifts of Zen is saying that we can practice, we can get better at doing nothing.
David Rainick Roshi is a Zen teacher and the author of the book Wandering Close to Home, a year of Zen reflections, consolations and reveries.
There is such a momentum to our lives and to this society that we get rewarded for being busy. It can make us feel like we're an important person, we're worthwhile, we're accomplishing things. But yet underneath that busyness, there is this anxiety of who am I and what am I here on earth to do? You can pretend you're fine with how you are, but in the end, it doesn't really work.
So there's something about being more present in the moment rather than who we think we are.
The thing about the Zen teachings and the mindfulness teachings is that
Hello, everyone. I am deeply honored and filled with joy to share today's conversation with one of those rare human beings who might be even too humble to admit that. My guest today is David Dayan Reinik Roshi. He's a Zen teacher, authorized in both the Korean Renzai and Japanese Soto lineages. He's founding teacher of the Boundless Way Zen Temple, and since 2003, he has worked as a life and leadership coach. He also holds a black belt in judo, which is no easy feat to get to, not at all, and has taught dance, aikido, qigong, as well as organizational leadership, systems thinking, pottery, creative process, and he's also a licensed kayak guide. There might be a lot of Zen happening to create space in life. So, friends, join us today if you want to practically learn about how to bring Zen to your daily life and live with more fulfillment, ease, and joy. David Reinek Roshi, warm welcome to you to the Pause to Elevate podcast.
thank you so much, Kasim. I'm delighted to be here and so looking forward to our conversation. And please call me David.
Thank you so much. And I have to tell listeners before we connected today here, we connected before to talk about this podcast, and I left feeling so uplifted, so like heart open, mind open, and I was really touched by just who you are, how you are, and the way you have lived your life. So I'm really excited to share um, a bit of what I experienced with you when we first met. So thank you again for joining us. I had to say that because it left me feeling like this is what the teachings help us
Mhm.
live. Practical joy.
Well, and I think when we meet another human being, our hearts meet in some way. And of course, all
Mm,
of us know sometimes you meet someone or come in contact with someone and your heart starts to resonate. So
yeah.
please know the feeling is mutual as we meet to talk about this.
Thank you so much. I even shared with you before we began, like I'm feeling a little nervous because and like so bubbly with joy, so bubbly with joy. So I wonder if we can begin with just some of the basics. Like, what is Zen? What is Zen? It's used a lot in the media, like, oh, your house is Zen, or I'm feeling Zen, or but there's a surface meaning to it, and but
Mhm.
what is a deeper meaning?
Well, the deeper meaning, Zen is really a deodorant you can buy. No. When I saw that, that was like, wow, we've really come a long way to get Zen deodorant. Uh, but for me, Zen is this wonderful tradition that
Mm,
from ancient China and roots back in
mm,
India. But that is a tradition of human beings looking into life.
mm,
It's not a set of beliefs. It's not worshiping a deity, but a
mm,
path to come closer to this moment.
mm. I think sometimes that gets confused. Besides the Zen deodorant, like you're saying, it's sometimes confused. Or oh yeah, I have to be like a certain religion to practice or get benefit from these teachings. And
Yeah, and I think my background, you didn't mention, I'm the
Mm.
son of a Presbyterian minister. And
Mm.
so for me, my first spiritual path was Christianity.
Mm.
But I always say that blame my involvement in Zen on my father, who taught that God, or we could say the sacred, is something right here in this moment, not
Mm.
somewhere else. And the wonderful thing about Zen is that it doesn't ask followers to believe in a set of doctrine. The Buddha's teachings were not something you should believe, but rather the teachings of what it means to be a human being. And
Mm.
for me, Zen is one path, and poets speak of life in the same way. And in fact, all spiritual religions, in some way, I think we're all pointing at something. All of
Mm.
us, or many of us, have a sense that there's more to life than the busyness and what's happening here. So Zen
Mm.
answers some longing, or it's some invitation to be who you are.
Ah, what a beautiful way of saying it. This question of this busyness in life that's we're kind of addicted to. Busy, busy, busy.
Yeah.
How can Zen help us in working with this never ending, sometimes feels of a trap of busyness?
Mhm. Well, the main practice of Zen Buddhism is to sit still. And when I heard my first Zen teacher talk when I was in my mid 20s, I felt there was some truth in what he was saying, but yet
Mm.
this idea of sitting still seemed so difficult. So
Mm.
I made a commitment that I would do it for 3 minutes a day.
Mm.
I figured that was about the limit of my endurance, because of course, when you sit still, what you realize is all that's going on in the mind and the body constantly.
Mm.
And when we sit still or even slow down, we can begin to see why we're addicted to busyness. We
Mm.
may be frantically busy, but there's at least I know I'm busy. How are you doing? Well, I'm busy. I'm an important person. As we slow down, some of what we have to look into are deeper questions that maybe make us uncomfortable.
Mm. And what kind of things do we are we avoiding? Like the busyness somehow, like if we sit with, I'm looking at my life right now,
Mm,
and just I was just mentioned to you, I just moved, so there's a lot of busyness. But I was reflecting before we met, I'm like, wait a minute, even before the rush of packing and preparing and unpacking, and it's like I have to intentionally create time to practice,
yeah,
because if I leave it, my habitual pattern is to fill it with more tasks. I got to do more emails. I got to get this. I got to that. Like I have to intentionally
yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, there is such a momentum to our lives and to this society that we live in, and we get rewarded for being busy. It can make us feel like we're an important person, we're worthwhile, we're accomplishing
Mm.
things. But yet, underneath that busyness, there is this anxiety of who am I, and what am I here
Mm.
on earth to do? And what about this thing of life not going on forever?
Mm.
And I think one of the gifts of Zen is saying that we can practice, we can get better at
Mm.
doing nothing.
It's like we need like a training, and like
Yeah,
Zen, and one of the practices, to help us undo what we've
yeah,
learned.
yeah.
Busy, busy, busy. So I want to just refer to your book because you say something about that that I really enjoyed. And your book is Wandering Close to Home: A Year of Zen Reflections, Consolations, and Reveries. And let me just bring that up because I found it really touched on something for me. So I
Mm,
hope it does for
yeah.
the listeners too. On some level, we know that everything changes and that we will all die. But most of the time, we unconsciously count on everything being pretty much the same as it was yesterday. We think we know what there is to worry about. It's a project that's due next week. It's making sure to get the grocery store before we run out of bread. Like all the little things that's
Yeah,
covering up a bigger thing.
right.
Can you say about this struggle with change?
So, one of the Buddhist teachings is that the notion of a self, um, there is no permanent self.
Mm,
That I think that I am. So I am David Reineck, and I think I know who I am. But of course, if I look at pictures of me from 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 50
mhm.
years ago, and I say I'm the same person, it's clearly not the case.
Yeah.
Uh, but yet, I want to believe I'm someone. And Zen encourages us to look in that, because as long as I'm someone, I've got a problem. And the problem is I have to defend that self. Now, I can be, if I become a Zen master, which I am, but if I
Mm,
become a Zen master, then I have to defend being a Zen master. And if you say something uh, that upsets me, then you're challenging my identity. And
mm.
we human beings get so defensive. How dare you say that to me? I
Yeah.
can't believe. But if we look more closely at our experience, I cannot find David anywhere. Right. So here we are talking, and people listening to this. You're all listening in whatever circumstance you are, but who's the one who's listening? Who's
Mm,
the one who's talking? And when we begin to loosen this certainty, there's less to defend. And
mm.
then we can meet what comes in some more genuine way.
So there's something about being more present in the moment rather than who we think we are.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So much of our thinking is self-directed. How was I?
mm.
How am I? How will I be? The little self worrying. And let me tell you, you will die, as I say
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
yeah.
passage. And me too. And all of this will disappear. And this possibility of loosening our grip, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to be someone. I'm glad that you know who you are, and you do
Mm,
this podcast, and
mm.
wonderful. And yet that's only part of who you are,
Yeah.
right? And I am all these different things, but um, each moment when I meet it authentically has some incredible gift in it. And I think
Mm,
all of those essays, all of the reflections in the book, are my attempt to meet the moment, not as Zen doctrine or as this
uh,
or that, but when I'm washing dishes, or when I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling exhausted, how can I meet that moment?
you're naming even exhausted, and I know one of the sections in the book is about working with your limits.
Mm,
And it made me wonder about these being within our limits and sometimes forcing ourselves past it, like working late or taking on too much
yeah,
and not wanting to be there and then feeling stuck
yeah.
in like always working past my limits and burnout and exhaustion and so how do you work with that with your just
Well,
as part of being human this exhaustion we get
yeah,
into.
I think one of the things that is so powerful to me is that I say to myself a lot. especially when I'm in a difficult place, is this is how people feel sometimes,
Mm.
whatever it is. So if it's exhaustion, if it's overwhelm, if it's stuckness, this is how people feel. Because I think in our culture, we're in such a fix it mentality. So if you don't feel tip top, you feel like something's wrong. You aren't thinking the right
Mm.
thoughts. You aren't using the Zen deodorant in the correct way. You aren't all of these things. So the first thing is to be where you are, even if you don't like it. So
Mm.
when I'm exhausted and overwhelmed, I really don't like it. Still, after meditating for decades and decades, sometimes still I'm in a place that I don't like.
Yeah.
Um, but that's how people feel sometimes. So if we can move from the fix it mentality to the be mentality, letting it be, letting yourself be who you are in this moment, uh, as if a friend came to you and they were exhausted or
Mm.
they were angry, you wouldn't say, I hope you wouldn't say, well, just get over it. You'd say, oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry. Come here and sit down.
Yeah.
Let's have a cup of tea."
Mm.
Right? And we can begin to do that for ourselves and with ourselves.
What a tender, gentle, loving way to be with what is. Like,
Yeah.
this is just what is right now. There's worry, or there's upsetness, or there's like sleep deprived, or
Yes.
agitation. And I think sometimes there's a misconception if you practice mindfulness or you Zen and you just don't feel these things. You're just like
No,
this
yes.
this perfectly
Yeah.
balanced, no feeling,
Right.
everything, nothing affects us.
Right.
Like
Right.
you just become this transcend the human, but that's such a
Yeah, I
misconception.
wish. I really wish. Right? But actually, not really. That this common conception of Zen is, yeah, being Zen is kind of this flat line. No, nothing gets to him. He's really Zen.
Mm.
But actually, real Zen is the roller coaster, is the shape of the monitor by your bedside. We want the
Mm.
peak and the valley. The flat line will come soon enough. Right.
That's later.
That's later. Yeah, you'll get there. Right. But now, how do we appreciate, as we say, the 10,000 joys and sorrows?
Mm.
Zen is not a trick to escape, uh, and nor is mindfulness. I think as
Yeah.
mindfulness is practiced deeply, it's not about avoiding. The Buddha said that suffering and discomfort are unavoidable.
Mm. Can you say more about the 10,000 joys and sorrows?
Yeah, it's late August now, and as I look out my window in Massachusetts, the leaves are green on the tree and they're blowing in the wind, and the nasturtiums are blooming in a pot on my porch. And it's an extraordinary thing to be a human
Mm.
being. Right. I now have grandchildren, a little 1 year old and a 5 year old.
Hmm.
And they are such wonderful teachers of life is astonishing. And we get so lost, and there is this momentum. We get older and it gets
Mm.
heavier and heavier. Um,
Mm.
but I think actually there is a possibility to grow in love and understanding. And we all have limits. So it doesn't matter how old you are. Nobody I
Yeah.
know can jump over a building, right? Now I
Yeah.
can't run like I used to or work as hard, but yet every moment of life and even the difficult ones
Mm.
are precious.
So, allowing space for both, like this 10,000 joys, 10,000 sorrows, is like holding space for both. It's not about sometimes what feels like a fake happiness. Let's just get
Yeah.
to the good thing and ignore anything bad, uncomfortable, we don't want in life. Then we'll be happy.
Right.
Like
Right.
if I get rid of all the unwanted, whether it's the bill or the
Yeah.
mortgage or a annoying person, what we think is annoying, or family, or when they're
Or
all
the parts of ourself we don't like.
yeah
I'll be fine as
yeah
soon as I get rid of my anxiety. I'll be fine as soon as I'm not
mm,
tired, or, but, good luck with that. You can try that. And if that works, great. But I don't know anyone who has done that. And I know it's funny. I think of a Christian scripture that in the New Testament, someone said that the stone the builders rejected becomes the cornerstone of the temple. And for me,
oh beautiful.
these parts of myself that I have that I don't like, uh, that and I wish, and for me, actually, from the time I was a little boy, there's been this deep loneliness that I have experienced, that I felt, and quite painful at times, feeling separate from the world. And for so long, I just wanted to get rid of it. And my first 10 years
Mm.
of practicing Zen, I worked as hard as I could to get rid of that and be one with everything. But now I realize that this loneliness is not what I think it is.
Mm.
When it comes, and it still comes, if I can be with it, if I can meet it, then there is the possibility that some transformation happens,
Mm.
and meet these parts of me. My teacher used to say, our miserable karma becomes our wonderful dharma.
Miserable karma becomes wonderful. Wow.
Right? And I think this is what the possibility is, right? Instead of this
Mm.
impossible fixing. So thinking about the possibility of transforming the moment, that so
Mm.
often we're in the sorting business. So I want these parts of myself and I don't want those. I want this part of life and not that part of life. And this is, and I think practice, whether it's mindfulness practice or Zen practice, is somehow, as you've alluded to, about creating a wider field. It's not about narrowing down, but letting this be and letting this be.
Mm.
And as we do that, then everything has the possibility. Everything is sacred in some way.
See, as you said that, you remind me of a quote by John Kabat-Zinn, who was the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction and BSR program, and he deeply inspired me to
Mhm.
really take this seriously, this path of
Yeah.
mindfulness and learning like about myself things, even though I was in counseling already. But it was like, wait a minute, there's so much I've missed out. And
Mm.
he has this quote that he says, mindfulness is about seeing clearly what is and being in a wise relationship with it, even if it's difficult or painful.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's something about like, which is what you're naming. It's seeing clearly.
Yes.
Like we want to reject, like you said, there's a parts of us like I don't like this part of me, I
Hmm.
don't like this part of me, like the part of me that gets agitated quickly. I don't want this. I'm embarrassed that I get agitated or whatever. Rather than this is all of me, and how can I hold space for myself? Like
Right.
this
Right.
this befriending. Like that's what I'm hearing from you. This is
Yeah.
befriending rather than rejecting
Right.
aspects of
Right.
who we are.
And my teacher used to say, when I sat many years with him doing these silent retreats where we would
Mm.
meditate for half an hour and walk for 10 minutes, and meditate again for half an hour and walk for 10 minutes,
Mhm.
and do this over 3 days or 7 days. Um,
Mm.
and he would often say, as we began, This practice is about cultivating a basic friendliness toward ourselves and toward what arises. And I think this is
Mm,
exactly what you're talking about. John said this wise relationship, but it is
mm,
this basic friendliness to ourselves, to our
mm,
experience, which um, is surprisingly hard to do. You know, most of us have an internal critic who says, "Well, I'm
mm,
going to help you and I'm going to tell you you are wrong now." Right? You should
mm.
not be feeling this, saying this, doing this. And I'm only trying to help you. I'm just trying to
Right.
help. Right? So and so how do we cultivate this basic friendliness even toward that part of ourselves? So
Mm,
this is not about getting rid of the critic. This is about saying, "Oh, yeah, this is how I am sometimes. This is how it is for human beings." So
mm.
I don't have to add a critic on top of my critic.
Ah, being a critic of a critic.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm
Right.
going to get rid of this critic. I'm going to get rid of you because
Yeah,
you're
that critic
bad.
is bad. That my
Yeah, yeah,
critical
yeah. That guy.
self is bad. Yeah,
But it
yeah, yeah.
goes on endlessly.
Ah,
But at some point, we go, "Oh, yeah, this is where I am now. I'm just judging myself."
mm,
And then when we stop, and I love your because there's that's kind of the motion toward letting it sink in. And the thing about these teachings, the Zen teachings and the mindfulness teachings, is
mm,
that it's not outside of you. Right? The way mindfulness is taught is not by an academic lecture, but by
right.
engaging in a group and, do this and notice what you notice. And same
Mm,
way in Zen, the point is not getting a good book about Zen and learning the philosophy,
yeah,
but practicing meeting ourselves and that we can grow in love and understanding toward
mm.
ourselves and toward the world. Yeah.
So there's something about direct experience which I so love about these teachings is don't just believe something, like go experience it.
Yes.
And I can't remember who said it. Um, but there's something about like these practices. If you don't practice, it's like eating a recipe of a cake that's
Yeah.
written on paper rather than
Yeah.
tasting the cake. Like
Yeah.
you gotta you can't
Yeah.
just eat a piece of paper that's describing
That's right.
cake.
That's
You gotta
right.
practice and see what it's like.
Because what what we're searching for is already here.
Hmm.
And you this wisdom that you're longing for or maybe searching for is already here, but we have to stop and pause and open to what we already know in our deepest heart. And it's really hard to practice. People often say to me, "Well, I tried meditating and I went for about a week and then I just stopped." And I said, "Yeah, that sounds pretty much what everyone's experience is." And say to people that it's really hard to stop. I mean, circling back to where we started, the momentum of life is fierce.
Yeah.
And to clarify this intention, what is it I really want? Even meditating for 3 minutes a day is an incredibly difficult thing to do
Yeah.
and an
Yeah.
incredibly powerful thing to do. You don't need to meditate for hours and hours or go on a silent retreat. Most people will never do that. But if you stop intentionally with this intention to be with what is here, I guarantee it will change your life.
Hmm. These pauses, like
Yeah,
intentionally bringing pauses
yeah,
into daily life. And I find myself, even with eating,
hmm,
hungry, got to get to the next thing, sit and eat. And,
yeah,
when I remember, I do take a little pause, just
yeah,
even just a breath,
yeah,
just looking at the food for a moment. and beginning to eat. I don't
Well,
always remember.
no, no, and I don't either.
Uh,
And it is, I think, the most central spiritual discipline
mm,
is this remembering, and it is the root for the Pali word for mindfulness, which is sati, comes from the root of to remember. And for me, it's remembering what is most important, right?
mm,
And of course, wonderful to have a busy life and wonderful to be able to do things. I'm quite ambitious. This morning I was out building some steps in my garden and
mm,
sweating, and I love to do stuff. And to remember how brief life is and how
mm,
inescapable difficulty is,
mm,
and how much we long to be close to ourselves, to be close to the people we love, to be close to life.
mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And in Zen, we call it bodhicitta in Buddhism, the energy
Mm,
of the heart. And we talk
mm.
about rousing the bodhicitta. So it's really hard to even meditate for a short time, but for a long period of time. And if we try to do it by willpower, we don't do so well. I always
Oh.
say that willpower is a very weak force in the universe. Right?
Mm.
We all know what we should do, uh,
Yeah.
and try to talk ourselves into it. Okay, you should do your exercises today.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but I think until we touch some deeper longing, some deeper necessity, then there's not the power to cut through that momentum of everyday life. Mm.
See, when you're sharing this, you remind me of some research by Dr. Judson Brewer
Uh,
and some of his research on addiction and habits and how we get caught so easily. And applying willpower does not work, which is really the essence of the teaching that you're sharing. It's like, wait a minute,
yeah.
it's not about forcing, but he speaks about building a reward, better offer. He calls it.
Mhm.
It's like
Oh, yeah.
getting ourselves a reward, which is doing the good thing for us and
Mm.
letting that pull us
Uh-huh.
instead of pushing. Instead of pushing, I'm going to will
Yeah.
myself to meditate. Letting, it's like what comes first. It's like practice or peace. It's like sometimes people want to feel more at peace before they practice,
Yeah.
but practice doesn't mean we always feel at peace, but we have to practice.
Right. Right. Well, and for me, I like that. What's a better offer? But I go back to life is short.
Mm,
What do you want to give your life to? Right? And
mm,
asking ourselves that what's my purpose here at whatever level. That comes at all different levels, and then, as you say too, and surprisingly, Zen and I think mindfulness is about action. The action I
mm,
take when I meditate is, as the great Chinese Zen teacher Lin Chi said, to do nothing. But it's that active intention to mark it in my calendar at 11:30. I will pause for 5 minutes. And what are
mm.
you doing? I am pausing. Right? I am looking up at the sky.
See, that really motivates, I think, most of us, which is like, oh, I'm not just wasting time. Somehow, for many of us, I know that was my experience when I began this path. Is like, I don't have time for this. Like,
Right?
I don't have time. Too busy. Why the heck should I now sit and do nothing?
Yeah.
And then slowly over time, like in a way, it gave me the sense of actually, I'm doing something for myself. It's not I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's some kind of, I was talking to someone recently who said he's just starting and he's listening to guided meditations for 5 minutes a day. And he says he feels better. He doesn't really know why, But
Mm,
part of it for him is declaring this as important and doing it.
mm,
And I think, as you were saying before, it's not about that we can see, oh, I learned something and I'm now piling up my knowledge, but of some intention that I will do this and see what happens. And I think we all want to be honorable, if only to
mm,
ourselves. So if I decide I'm going to do this and I do this, then I think, okay, I decided this was important and I aligned my actions with that. Uh,
mm.
and in the coaching I do, they have a wonderful definition of fulfillment, which is not about some destination or having the right job or the right partner or the right income. But fulfillment is when we act in alignment with our deepest heart. And that's possible at every moment.
And I guess realigning,
Yes.
because if we're not connected to what's happening in the moment, to ourselves, we won't even know we're out of alignment.
Right. Yeah. 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 Exactly. We're
So
too busy. And
yeah.
I think that's part of the pain in starting meditation or in intending to slow down. People will often say, my mind seemed calmer before I started meditating. And I said, well, it's actually, you're just noticing the state you've been living in. So
Mm,
as we slow down, it may be painful because we may begin to sense that the life we're living is not aligned with something deeper that's calling to us. And that's a painful place to be.
mm. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to quickly thank you for stopping by and watching this content. It truly means the world to me that you're interested in creating positive change. I also want to invite you to join our amazing community. I have free events online about mindfulness, mindfulness based stress reduction, laughter, as well as retreats that you can do from the comfort of your own home. And are you ready for this? Self paced program that you can do about mindfulness and stress reduction. So you can join the newsletter below to stay up to date on all these goodies. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and press that button. It really helps me to keep this content going and reach out to more guests. Thank you so much again, and may you continue enjoying watching this episode. So that's the part that might be discouraging at first for some,
Yeah.
because of so many misconceptions about these practices. Like, I want to find an oasis of calm and
Yeah.
peace,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I want to shut off the rest of the world. I want to sit on my chair or cushion or lie down or however you meditate. Anyone chooses to. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm anxious. Wait a minute. My mind is
Yeah.
busy. Oh, this is not working. This is not
That's right.
working.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it can work, but for other people, not for me. Like,
Right.
not my mind, because my mind is busy. I got a lot
Yeah.
of stuff
Yeah.
in my mind.
If I had a quarter for everyone who said that they were the worst meditator in the world, uh, I would be a rich man now. Um, yeah, well, in the Zen tradition and in Buddhism, we often talk about the three treasures: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
Mm,
Um, Buddha is the aliveness of the
mm,
moment, right? Not so much uh, the historical figure, but each one of us contains
mm,
this piece, and Dharma is the teaching. And so, in a sense, this podcast is the teaching, or a
mm,
poem might be the teaching, or your 5-year-old child might be the teaching in the moment.
mm.
And we need that. We need encouragement. We need to hear, to have teachers in a mindfulness class who is not a perfect human being. I mean,
Right.
you accepted, but
Of
uh,
course,
yeah,
I got her
yeah.
all figured out. Like,
That's right. You and me accepted, really, but
yeah,
most
yeah,
other
yeah,
people, right?
yeah.
Um, so this aliveness, and then a teacher, the teachings, and then the sangha is the community.
Mm.
And, one of the things John Kabat-Zinn from the Zen
Mm.
tradition, which is where he got part of his start,
Yeah.
is this a mindfulness class happens together. It's not a one-on-one thing. And when
Mm.
we practice Zen, we do it together, which at first made no sense to me. When I went on my first retreat, we were told, well, you're not going to talk to anyone for the next 3 days, and you have to keep your eyes down. And I thought, why do we go to all this trouble? Why don't we just sit at home in our closet? A- And we do it together because we are mammals, we are pack animals.
Mm.
And when you're sitting with a group of two or three or 20 or 100, there is an energy of
Yeah.
everyone doing their best in this work, and that we really need each other. So, a community of practitioners so
Mm.
essential, along with that teacher and the teachings.
Mm. Really, something happens in community. It
Yeah,
really does. It's We can relate to each other, connect to each other, see each other, be vulnerable together, and learn the wisdom from each other. And I see that in mindfulness based stress reduction. It's like, oh, people realize I'm not alone,
yeah,
and begin to realize, oh, we all have wisdom. Like, it's not just
right.
whoever's saying something profound. It's like we all have wisdom. We don't have to say anything profound, but we all have a knowing about our, like, we're the experts on our life.
Yeah. And
Mm.
one of the things about this wisdom is that one Zen teacher said, "All of you have your own light, but if you try to see it, you cannot." So, Kasim, it's lovely to
Mm.
speak with you. You have this a generous heart and this curiosity that kind of comes off you in waves. Um, and it's not that you're trying to do that. If you
Mm.
tried to do that, it would be kind of unpleasant.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's allowing yourself. And so I see that. And
Mm. Mm.
people tell me, oh, David, you have this presence, you have this and that. Well, I don't experience that.
Mm.
I have to trust that if I touch something in me, that it touches something in you.
Yeah.
And I think the wonderful thing about a community or a class, you hear other people speak and you can see, oh my goodness, what a precious human being. How
Mm.
wise. And then I think we have to make the inference, well, if all of these other people sparkle with their own light, maybe I do too.
Mm.
But you can never stand outside yourself and see that. If you
Mm.
try to do that, it's just quite painful.
Mm.
When I started my spiritual journey about in seriousness, in some ways about 20, I was very disappointed at first because what I realized that if I was truly humble, I couldn't know that I was humble. And I thought, well, what's the good of being, good of being humble if you can't know that you're humble and be proud about it? So,
Feel accomplished about being humble.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Uh, so there is a way in this practice that it is about having faith that if I let
Mm.
things be, if I let myself be, um, in a sense, we can practice with the breath. So we breathe all the time. But if I turn my attention to the breath, can I really trust the breath?
Mm.
Can I breathe in without being worried about how long or how short? Can I let the breath come to the end and pause and let the breath go back? This breath that has been carrying me all my life.
Mm.
Can I learn to trust this life
Mm.
that is living me, this breath that is breathing me? Right? We can say,
Mm.
well, I'm breathing. And then I say, well, okay, so stop breathing and we'll see who's in charge. And it's not going to be you.
These teachings are so profound yet so simple. Like
Yeah.
it's so deep, the ocean. And I remember the first book. I was a teen, and
Mhm.
I've always been into martial arts. So that's why I was so excited about your judo. I'd
Oh,
love to ask you
yeah.
about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I had someone give me a book. I used to do taekwondo when I was a teen,
Uh-huh.
and the book was Zen and the Martial Arts,
Mhm.
and that just blew my mind. I was like,
Mm.
whoa. I mean, the first thing, it's like empty your cup, and I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
how do I? Oh, I got too much stuff in my mind. Like it's like these simple things that I still think about.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
all these years that I read it, I'm like, oh, empty. It's like empty your cup. Go, wait, what does that mean?
Mm,
Oh,
mm.
what's in my cup?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
in Zen, we call these turning phrases. So, all of us, as we go through our life,
Mm,
someone will say something or will read something that gets through our armor, gets through the hard shell of our carapace, and goes right
mm,
into our heart, right? And so, empty your cup, and you get to practice with that all your life,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Next level, next level, next level.
It's so true. It's continuous because I have to remind myself of assumptions I have about how my life is, or even just like the simple practical thing that happened the last couple of days, which is moving.
Mhm.
Assumptions about how it will be with a moving company, assumptions about the place. And it's like, I don't know. Like, I've it's too
Mhm.
many assumptions. Let's just experience it. I cannot predict everything. There's uncertainty. It's most likely it's not going to go fully my way, and it's true it didn't. Like
Aw.
right, but it's like it's really it's a constant teacher. This simple phrase, just empty your cup. Like, wait, what am I filling my mind with ideas of how it's going to be? That's
Yeah,
going to distract me from experiencing how it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For some reason, you mentioned martial arts, and I think of the archery. I think Kyudo, one of the Zen arts, and there's a story of a Zen teacher who was out at on the West Coast and doing a retreat out there. I think at Esalen, and he
Mm.
announced that he would do an archery demonstration one evening after dinner. And so he asked everyone to come to right the edge of the cliff. Apparently, there's some cliff looking out over the Pacific. And so he was in his ceremonial dress with his big bow. He took up the bow, pulled the arrow back, aiming out over the water, pulled it back, held it, and let the arrow fly into the ocean and turned
Mm.
around and said, "Bullseye." And for somehow for me that image is so wonderful because we're like, oh, I hope I get the target, I hope I get it right, when all the while we are
Mm.
being carried on great winds across the sky, right? Your
Mm.
heart is beating you, your stomach knows what to do, your liver, thank God your body knows what to do and doesn't rely on you to tell it, right? Be dead quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what a spaciousness when you shared that. Like
Yeah.
the spaciousness I felt as you were sharing that, like right into the water,
Yeah.
deep,
Uh,
bullseye. Like, wait a
yeah.
minute, because I think we try to control things so deeply. Like
Yeah.
I want things to go this way, and I want others to be a certain way, and but that creates tightness, like rather than
Yeah,
openness.
and nice that you could plan, and I'm
Mm,
assuming you made your move for certain reasons, and you could
mm.
actually call the moving company so you didn't have to just hope that your things would move themselves over,
Yeah,
right? So this mind and
you got
this
to take action.
yeah, that's right. Taking
Yeah.
action's wonderful, and to have plans and to want to live into this place as opposed to other places wonderful,
Mm,
and it's just not always going to be what you think it should be,
yeah.
and the
Yeah.
possibility of meeting that in some new way, I guess that's what the practice is. And as you say,
Mm.
we can't always do it, I can't always do it,
Yeah.
right? The old habits are strong, and actually in the beginning of my book, I quote a Zen master who said, it's so simple, a 3-year-old child may be able to say it, but an 80-year-old can't put it into practice, right? So these simple teachings that are inexhaustible and invite us again and again, invite us into this moment and invite us to set aside whatever we think we have gotten. Uh,
Mm.
because we say today's awakening is tomorrow's delusion. So you have an experience today and you think, okay, now I've got it. And I'm just going to hold on to this sucker. What do you
And try to repeat that. Yeah.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
as we practice, there are these experiences. And even if we don't practice, there's these experiences of beauty and grace that
Mm.
every human being has. And we may think we don't have it. And sometimes it's just an instant. You know,
Yeah.
when you open up the door on a cool morning and the breeze touches your face, like, ah. Um,
Mm.
and or an afternoon when you're with people you love and it's going well. But if we try to hold on to these, we suffer
Yeah.
if we try to replicate.
Mm.
So even our insight, the path of practice, I think in mindfulness and Zen, is not the path of accumulation, right? It's not that I'm getting this and now I have this, because pretty soon your bag's so full, your cup is totally full. This emptying the cup, it's not just of the bad stuff. Whatever you think
Mm.
it is not that, or it is not
Mm.
just that.
So the accumulation of knowledge becomes in a way a barrier to experiencing things as
Yeah,
they are, because now we think something.
yeah,
And it's so interesting, your background. There's like books. I think I mentioned to you when we first met, oh, like there's books on one side and nothing on the other. For me, it just felt like it's the teaching, like
yeah,
knowledge, emptiness. On the
yeah,
other side there's just a door, emptiness. So it's like,
yeah,
can we hold both? Can we hold the knowledge we have, and
yeah,
can we be open to starting new, starting fresh?
yeah. Emptiness is such a misunderstood word
Mm.
that maybe a boundlessness
Oh.
is a better word for that. So, the tree is the tree, and if I hit my head against it, it will hurt. But
Yes.
yet it's not a tree. It's this appearing, and even if the tree lives for 150 years, at some point it won't be here, and it wasn't here.
Mm.
So there's all of this flashing into existence, and there's no life without death.
Mm.
And we can join in the stream. We can
Mm.
join in this wondrous dance and then live our life that's just our ordinary life becomes our wonderful possibility.
As you're saying these words, I feel like a pulsation of life, like boom, 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 boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom,
yeah,
boom, boom. Like this moment right here, boom, boom, boom,
right,
boom.
right.
I can feel the here-ness of it, like
Yeah.
it's here, here, here. Yeah.
And I think that it does seem to me we are joining with life. And of course, we've never been separate from life. How could
Yeah.
you ever be separate? You breathe every moment, but as we drop inside, we can begin to feel that we are already at home,
Mm.
already connected, already uh, fully alive.
Mm.
We had just lost our way or we had just forgotten.
That felt like such a far away thing that I tried to reach for years. Like being at home in me, I'm like, I don't want to be at home in me. I'm not comfortable with my own feelings. I don't like,
Mhm.
and really, the more I practice, the more I seem to be forgiving of all the different feelings, emotions, thoughts. It's like, this is just how it is right now. I don't
Yeah.
have to like it, but can I be with it? Can I be with just how it is right now?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just how it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you say, the path of practice is not easy or straightforward.
Mm,
And I think that's why, you use the word intention, um, for all of us to clarify our intention, whether you're pursuing mindfulness or some spiritual path or Zen.
mm,
In my work with coaching clients, it's the same question I ask: What do you really want? What do
mm.
you want your life to be about? And then I say, and what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Right? Because there is this possibility and necessity and invitation to uh, to interrupt this mindless forward movement, and that each time we act in that way, so if you decide you're going to sit for 3 minutes a day,
Mm,
every time you do that is the fulfillment of your life.
mm,
And every time I sit down with our Zen community or by myself, um, this is the fulfillment of my life. Everything past, present, and future is here. And as you say, sometimes it's, mind is busy, filled with
mm.
thoughts or emotions, but this is it.
Yeah. So there's the almost not wanting to say the word because it's so misunderstood. There's acceptance.
Hmm.
Acceptance, which can be so misunderstood. Like, I don't want to accept feeling
Right.
anxious, or I don't want to accept something challenging happen or difficult. But um, how do we make sense of that acceptance?
Well, I think of Byron Katie's wonderful line: "You can try to teach a cat to bark, but in the end, it will just say meow." Right? So you can pretend whatever you want, that you are not anxious or depressed or you're not in pain. You can pretend you're fine with how you are.
Mm,
But in the end, it doesn't really work. And,
yeah.
and I guess I do think to start on the spiritual path or mindfulness path, something has to be not working.
Yeah.
Have to begin to see that this crazy dream of feeling good all the time, or we have to begin to sense that something is not working. Because if your life is working for you, fine. It's too
Yeah.
difficult to stop and do this,
Yes.
right? Uh, and so this acceptance, if it works for you not to accept, great, but things are as they are.
Mm,
And acceptance, as you say, it's so important. This doesn't mean that I like it.
mm,
Actually, when people, coaching clients or Zen students, come to me and say, "Oh, I'm just feeling really stuck," I'll say, "Great, let's feel stuck."
mm.
Right? And because our resistance, the one line, "What we resist persists."
Yeah.
So if I don't want to be stuck, I can work really, really hard and come up with all these great things I should do, and I'm still stuck. So part of the faith, I think, of that is required for this kind of practice is a kind of experimental faith. It's not a belief,
Mm,
but, well, I've tried to get unstuck and I don't seem to be able to do that. What might happen if I just let myself be stuck? Right. And it doesn't, you don't have to believe that anything will happen, but I find again and again, when we enter into the moment, it is not just what we think it is.
mm.
Right. And especially these mind states that are so difficult and painful. And there's such resistance. For me, it was that loneliness. For other people, it's anxiety or
Yeah.
anger or, all kinds of things. But they're places that we just don't want to feel, and often familiar places like, oh, this always happens to me.
Yeah.
Right. And there's such resistance. We don't even know what it is anymore. We're spending so
Mm.
much time trying to fight it.
Yeah.
And a question my teacher gave to me now decades ago in a place like this is, what is there here I've never noticed before? So, in that old familiar place of being stuck or being dumped on or being a failure, rather than resisted, is it possible to have just a little bit of curiosity? What
Mm.
is this place? What is there here I've never noticed?
So there's a turning to it
Hmm.
as you're sharing this. It's like, what is this? Curiosity like makes me want to lean into it rather than reject it. Like, oh, not this thing. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, let's. So there's an exploratory attitude of like, let's see what is this.
yeah. And then
Mm.
your problems, your difficulties become your treasure,
Mm.
right? They are the entry point. The very things you wish would not happen become the entry point into a new world. Uh, in some ways, we have these places in our personality structure that are just very cramped and all balled
Yeah.
up and unexamined. And as we can begin to be with them, not to solve them or fix them, but there is this pulsing that can happen. And
Mm.
this loneliness that used to be such a problem for me, now I see has been my special rocket fuel that has made me crazy enough to keep doing Zen for decade after
Mm.
decade, right? And I
Mm.
am deeply grateful to that.
So it became fuel, really.
Yeah, because so
Yeah.
much energy locked in that whatever it is,
Mm.
but requires such courage to be able to stay, to turn toward it at all.
Was that what led you to this Zen path? I think when you're 20, like,
Yeah, I'd always been appreciative of my father's profession and
mm,
his idea that there is some kind of personal God, something that's immediate in our life. But I grew very disillusioned in college. I was quite successful and went to a brand name college in the Northeast, and um, I was known on campus on the university senate and
mm.
co-captain of the wrestling team,
Oh
and
wow.
I was so unhappy. I
Mm,
was just I thought I've done everything I was supposed to, and I feel cut off and disconnected. And in that kind of a real darkness, a real kind of crisis, um, I had this experience of the unity of all things, kind of just
mm,
blossomed. And
mm,
I had this experience of the generosity of life and this interpenetration of all things that we could never be separate from. And it was a very powerful experience that lasted for several months. I was sort of in this almost altered state. Uh,
wow.
and
What?
yeah, it was quite something. And I realized that I didn't have to do anything, that there was nothing that I could do or needed to. And this is from a boy who had worked so hard to be a good boy and to, not
Mm,
upset people and do what I was supposed to. I was freed from that. Um, and so that was this big opening experience, not in the context of religion, although it was very Christian in some of the metaphors for me. But then that slowly faded away over the next
Mm.
6 months and year, what had been so vivid and apparent began to be harder to connect to, and then became just a story. And it was so painful. And it, but it did drive me to begin to look inside. It's when I started dancing and doing Aikido and pottery, and
Mm.
I had spent a life looking outward, trying to sense what other people were feeling. I had no idea what I was feeling or what I
Ah.
wanted. So that part of my life was saying, okay, let me begin to turn inward. Let me begin to get to know who I am.
Mm.
And it was in the middle of this period in my mid to late 20s that I heard a Zen teacher. And I knew that he knew what I knew. He spoke of this oneness of life, and this experience of the peace that passes understanding, doesn't matter what we call it, or awakening,
Mm.
and that there's a simple way to get there, not an easy way,
Right.
but sit down and shut up and don't move. So that was really difficult medicine for me, but something in my bones, I knew what he was talking about. And he
Mm.
was the first person I had met who I felt met me in that place of that experience I had. For my first 10 years of Zen, I was trying to replicate that experience. And that was not, I mean, it kept me going, but I slowly began to realize, so there are experiences one can have, but the point is not that.
Ah.
Right?
Yeah, this is so important to highlight as well because I see that too in mindfulness-based stress reduction is people. Oh, I went for a walk first, or maybe I ran
Yeah,
first. Then when I did my meditation, my mind's calmer. Now if I do this, or I ate this, and then now we're trying to piece together
that's right.
and replicate an experience, and now we're getting hooked into disappointment. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
because
Well,
it's that was just it. That was just that day.
that's right. That's right. And the little self comes in and says, okay, this is mine. I'm going to hold on to this. But
Yeah, 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 yeah,
you cannot
yeah.
hold on to this.
No, I want to look back to something you pointed to, but I wonder if you can just kind of tease out a little bit. You spoke about like faith, and I
Yeah.
know the pillars of Zen or
Right.
the essentials of Zen.
Yeah.
What are the three pillars?
Yeah. So the three pillars are faith, determination, and doubt. So faith is this, as I said, is not about belief, but about willingness to see what happens if I let myself be, if I don't try to be good. And it is about that experimentation. You have to be willing to step beyond what you know. And faith, of course, feeds, well, not of course, but my experience
Mm.
is that faith feeds on itself as I practice this letting go and begin to sense even more deeply that life is supporting me. I am not running the universe. This is both a great relief and a great disappointment.
I'm
Because
not in control of the planet.
yeah, right. I had hoped, uh, but but anyway. So that's faith, willingness to let myself be, let this moment be.
Ah.
Right. And then determination is some of what we've talked about. Um,
Mm.
the programming is so deep. There has to be a continued remembering and a coming back. And I think we have to practice. It's not about reading more books.
Yeah, yeah.
And many ways to practice. Gardening could be a practice, or sewing could be a practice, or
Mhm.
walking could be a practice. But doing something intentionally with the intention
Mm.
of being present.
Yeah.
and coming back and wandering away and being present. So that's that kind of determination. And
Mhm.
one of my great and not so great qualities is I'm a very stubborn person. I can seem really easygoing and nice, but if you get to know me, you'll know if something's important, I just,
You're sticking to it.
I'm sticking to it. So, and actually, wrestling was a wonderful practice
Yeah.
for that, right? You got to work hard. You go to practice every day.
Push, push, push.
Yeah, yeah. So there is a way. I'm very determined and very ambitious,
Mm,
but not ambitious to make a lot of money or be famous, but ambitious to live in the moment.
mm,
I'm so so dedicated, and I'm such a failure again and again. I refuse to give up. And over
mm.
time, things shift and change. So faith, determination, and then doubt. One of the unique things about Zen is it's not about some kind of calm knowing this is true, but about real questioning. What is this? In
Mm.
Zen, we work with koans, these little stories
Yeah.
that often between a student and a teacher that are sometimes quite enigmatic. But there are two basic koans. One is who am I,
Yeah.
right? And the other is what is this? So, who am I, this subject? Who is the one who is talking? Who is the one
Mm,
who is breathing? And then, what is this object? What is this sound, this sensation, this thought? And this kind of investigation, it's
mm,
close to curiosity. There's a kind of investigation in it,
mm.
but it's also about, do not believe your stress reduction teacher, especially if
Yeah.
his first name is Kasim. Be very or
Right.
David,
Right.
right? Don't believe, but be
Yeah.
curious. David says or Kasim says, let me
Yeah.
try it out for myself,
Yeah.
because you don't need someone else's wisdom. You need
Mm.
your own.
As you're sharing all of them, I can see how they help each other and they're important
Yeah.
because, you're determined, but if you don't have faith that this will work, so to speak, because we often do something knowing, oh, this is going to get me something, but
Mhm.
faith in the process,
Yeah.
faith, not just blind faith, but like seeing for ourselves. Can this help
Yeah.
me? Can
Yeah.
mindfulness help me? Can Zen help me? Can
Hmm.
this faith, but also doubt, so it doesn't become this blind faith.
Right. Yeah.
Like I can see, like it's like that,
Hmm.
like this.
Hmm.
This could be like a whole podcast, like the three.
Right.
I think, yeah,
Yeah,
just that
absolutely.
topic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it
Mm,
makes me think as we're talking here, and you can probably put this elsewhere, along with this book, Wandering Close to Home, and my
mm,
website at davidreineck.com. My
yeah.
wife, Melissa Blacker, who Kasim knows very well, and partly how we made our connection,
Yes.
she was a mindfulness teacher trainer for many years and worked closely with John. She and I lead a Zen community based in Worcester, Massachusetts, but since the
Yeah.
pandemic, we are international and we have
Oh.
about 15 different sitting periods each week that are open to anyone who wants to come. And
Oh.
it's boundlessway.org. Or,
I'll put that in the show notes,
yeah.
boundlessway.org. Mm. I'll put all of that, and the book is really beautiful. Like it
uh,
is really beautiful. Like what is it? 200 something different, or almost 300. I can't remember the number of
300 pages, like
three.
100.
Yeah, but it just so digestible, clear,
Uh,
precise,
yeah, yeah.
delicious
Yeah.
little sections. Like
Mhm.
one of them is like downsizing, and I was thinking about that, but it had like ways to downsize,
Yeah.
Having moved, I'm like, wow, I got a lot of stuff I didn't need. Why did I get all this stuff? I had to donate, get rid of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very practical. It's very, very practical. Just for the
Well, and
listeners.
what I tried to do, in the book, is to be really honest and looking into my own experience.
Hmm.
I actually wanted to write a book that was very clear and stepwise, first this and then that, but it was way too boring for me.
Yeah, yeah.
So rather than do that, I really turned my attention to this moment after moment, working in the garden or sitting on the porch or helping my
Hmm.
parents downsize, to what's arising in this moment. Uh,
Hmm.
One of the famous Zen stories is a student comes to the teacher and says, "How do I enter the way?" And the teacher says, "Do you hear the sound of the stream in the valley?" And the student says, "Yes." And the teacher says, "Enter here."
Hmm.
And we might say, "Do you hear the sound of the traffic going by your house? Do you feel your butt in the chair where you're sitting?" And then enter here. So the book is
Hmm.
there, in some ways, they're little prose poems
Hmm.
about kind of tracking moment after moment. And one of the uh, best compliments I got from my first book, which was similar, which was "This Truth Never Fails," was the
Hmm.
barista at the local coffee shop got a copy of it. And she was very excited when I came to get my coffee. And she said, "I've just been reading your book, and I didn't realize how Zen I am." And I says, "Yes, indeed you are, my dear."
Mm.
Right. So,
Ah, how beautiful. So this discovering and rediscovering who we are.
yeah,
And it's kind of getting to know how it is.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
How beautiful. I'll put in the show notes both
uh-huh,
books
yeah,
for the
great,
listeners and
great, and the Zen community, and we welcome beginners all the time. So
yes.
uh, we have some practice and sitting practice and walking and
Mhm.
talks and lots of opportunities. So a wonderful way to stick your toe in, and you can always disconnect and escape.
Log off. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Out of here. Oh, internet problem.
Yeah. Oh, I can't hear you all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
yeah, yeah.
No, I'll put all of that. It's been such a joyous pleasure to have this conversation, and truly time flew by, and we went actually over. I want to thank
Oh,
you for your
goodness.
gracious heart,
Yeah.
your boundless being, just like my sense of like Melissa from first time. It's like
Uh,
this boundless wave, just like just truly beautiful being.
mhm.
What a treat. I really want to thank you for your time and for
Yeah.
what you bring to the world, for really following the heart and supporting others in doing so. So I really want to thank you, a deep
Oh,
gratitude to you for this
yeah.
time.
Yeah. This has been wonderful to speak with a fellow traveler, right? To
Mm,
me, not so important mindfulness or Zen or something else, but
mm,
to meet someone committed to looking at himself and his life,
mm,
and to offering to other people these ancient and timeless and modern teachings. So,
mm. Thank you so much. Truly deep gratitude to you. Thank you. And I want to thank also the listeners for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, for watching as well. May your moments be filled with ease and may you be present in as many of them.
and even if your moments are not filled with ease, may you appreciate them.
Ah, beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Hello there, and thank you so much for stopping by this channel. I hope you find this content useful, and if you do, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It will really help me to reach to more people and keep this content going. Here we are journeying together, and let's see where this takes us.